Hey, friends, what's happening? Big Dog Ethan here. I have certainly a legendary guest, I think, here at Henderson State. This is Mr. Steve Listopad. Mr. Listopad, how are you doing?
Fantastic. How are you?
Um, yeah, doing pretty well, I think, considering, kind of all the crazy stuff that's happening around us right now. And I'm sure you've got a lot on your plate too right now. It sounds like you're in a pretty big transition period because it was recently announced in the Oracle that you're going to be leaving at the end of the semester, yeah?
Yeah, I am heading to the Arkansas Press Association, and I'm going to be their new director of communication and development.
Wow. So what does that job entail exactly?
Well, I'll be handling all the associations. The Press Association is an organization that supports the newspapers in the state and also the entire news media industry in the state. Um, and I will be doing in charge of all the communications, whether uh, newsletters, different campaigns, various things that come out of the Press Association. I'll be working on fundraising and other development, educational projects that the Press Association works on, and working with the legislature as far as making sure that uh, that legislation gets passed or doesn't get passed, depending on how it affects the press and the media industry positively or negatively. So
Mm.
lots of time to talk about that, but
Yeah.
with work that I've done in the past, working with legislatures, this is going to be right up my alley.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like it because I think in the past you've been a strong advocate for students press or yeah students press rights, and it
Right.
seems now you're going to be moving up to sort of advocating for press rights as a whole with your work there. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not it's it'll be more than just freedom of the press and press rights. Um, for instance, legislation that we'll want to look at next year would be to um, make sure that municipalities and governments or municipal governments and state government still provide public notices to the mainstream press. There's been a lot of talk about cost saving measures, putting public notices on government websites, but that kind of defeats the purpose. Having the third party vetting system of the press, and not having the government be the lone arbiter, the lone proprietor, the lone disseminator of the information that needs to be produced, is a part of the American fabric,
Yeah.
and we want to make sure that the press still receive public notices going
Yeah.
forward.
Well, and especially with the advent of the internet, I think there's also just a lot more routes or avenues now for that sort of third party criticism to take place of that information. I think,
Right.
I think a lot of people have. Some people may argue that like even these third party media outlets that we do have right now act as what they call like stenographers
Mhm.
to the government. But I don't think I think that's a little bit of a I think that's a bit of an over statement. I think because I think you still get those you still do have those you can still have those tense what's the word adversarial relationships that the press and the government need to have, even with our even in our current mainstream media system. Um, anyways, that's a ramble. The thing that the thing that sounds interesting about this the legislation that you mentioned though, it's that. Yeah, I mean, it seems like it would be a great way for the government to communicate, even just basic pieces of information that the public may need to know. What kind of information do you think that these public notices would provide?
Well, right now the status quo is that state and local governments provide um, all of their business in the form of public notices to the press, and then the press publishes those public notices. Um, and to save money, um, uh, state and local governments across the country often try to say, hey, we're not gonna pay to put these public notices in the third party press anymore. We're going to put them on our own website, and they could put them on their own website. They could be difficult to get to. There would be less oversight or less third party verification that all the public notices are actually being published. And it would also hurt the press industry, the news media industry in general, by reducing a very vital source of income. It's not much of a subsidy, but it's a vital subsidy for providing just general public information to the people that local and state governments pay for those public notices in the media.
Okay, and which outlets do you think would be most affected by a policy like that if it were to be implemented in Arkansas?
Newspapers.
Oh,
um,
okay. Just
Newspapers and their websites would be
in the
most.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, well, yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. I didn't even know that was. I didn't even know that was like a huge. Is that a battle that's happening in other states right now?
Yes, it's happening in other states, and we want to be proactive in Arkansas to make sure that the there's the political will by the state and local governments to keep doing it, and whatever negotiations need to happen, we want to make sure that we're ahead of it, since it is coming up in other states.
Okay. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Thanks for your proactivity on that. I do kind of want to examine, because I know you've in class before you've mentioned some other I don't know, battles or I guess like fights that you've taken on in defending in just defending sort of the press as a whole, I guess. I remember that there was at one point in class you showed us a video. I think it was of a politician. I think it might have been from your home state of, and I'm so sorry, getting now South and North Dakota.
North Dakota.
North Dakota.
North Dakota.
North Dakota. Okay. I remember a video of a politician from North Dakota talking about some work you did, and for the life of me, I cannot remember specifically what that work was. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, that was Senator Heidi Heitkamp speaking on the floor of the U.S. Senate. She's former Senator Heidi Heitkamp. She was talking about the New Voices Act, that the law that was passed in North Dakota in 2015, that my students and I wrote, which was to protect student journalists at public and public K-12 education and public higher education. And she was just saying how proud she was of her home state, and that the New Voices legislation that we passed in 2015 has now helped 7 or 8 other states pass similar legislation. And I continue to work with that as much as I can.
Oh yeah, and that's great. I have to ask, because I remember I think it was in that same class you were talking about the what was it, the Hazelwood versus I'm forgetting the name. It was the Hazelwood. I should think of it as the Hazelwood school district case. Yep. Where they has there been any efforts to in Missouri specifically to like repeal? Well, I guess it's wasn't that a federal case? Yeah,
there has been, and ironically, every state around Missouri, every state bordering, or not every state, but most of the states bordering Missouri, have some sort of anti-Hazelwood law, because the Supreme Court case that gave administrators and teachers pretty much supreme authority to censor student journalists, and censor them more so than any other type of free expression that's protected by the First Amendment. Um, that came from Missouri, and states around Missouri at the time recognized it. Some of the first states to pass anti-Hazelwood laws were Kansas and Arkansas, and what else? What else is bordering? Let me think here. I
Illinois, maybe.
Illinois, they later passed. That was later. That was after North Dakota passed ours. But Iowa has something, and yeah. So there, yeah. So there's a good chunk of the Missouri border that saw the Hazelwood decision and said, hey, no, we don't want that in our state.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm glad for sure. I went to I went to an all boys Catholic high school, so I never really, I guess no matter what decision was made with that case, I don't think it would have helped me. We actually had we have a really great newspaper there called the Prep News, and they actually do great coverage of just like school events, to the point where like I'll even still check in with some of their articles. But of course, because it's a Jesuit school, so it's there's going to be a limited amount of opinions that you can give in that newspaper. I mean, regarding abortion, it's like forget voicing any kind of pro-choice opinion.
Kathy Hazelwood, now Kathy Kuhlmeyer, but when she was the student editor of her student newspaper. I'm sorry, no, Kathy Kuhlmeyer. It was the Hazelwood School District. Man, that would be one of those things that you'd edit out, but you don't need to.
Yeah.
It was Kathy Kuhlmeyer, the student editor of her student newspaper in the Hazelwood School District. She did reporting on teen pregnancy and teen drug use and things like that, and not in a sensational or crude way, but it just information that would be good for people to know about those issues. And the school said that she can't publish that, and then that went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said that teachers and administrators have the ability to censor student work that takes place inside the curriculum. Well, so most student newspapers at the scholastic level are not separate organizations. They're part of the curriculum, and so while the Tinker Standard from 1969 still protects the T-shirt that you wear to school, the journalism that gets produced by schools was now under this new standard that let teachers and administrators pretty much censor whatever they wanted. Yeah. So now about 16 states have passed laws, including Arkansas, that prevents that reinstate the Tinker Standard for student journalists.
And that's good. And to add on to that, because I've been talking about, actually I think you were walking by the radio station yesterday when I was babbling about. I was kind of giving a rambling review of this Sorry, it's a biopic miniseries on Hulu. It's called Dope Sick. It's that one with Michael Keaton.
I started watching that.
Oh my God! Good. Yes, it is so good, and it's. I think it's like one of the few. There are very few shows where I have had to like pause and take a break just from like the intensity. I like it got to some moments where it was just too much for me. But it is a powerful view. One thing that the biopic explores is how these OxyContin pills even found their way into high schools as well. And so I guess I bring that up because doing something like not letting students report on drug use or any of those kind of things, that allows for that kind of activity to continue without anyone being aware of it.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's a it's a press issue. It's a public safety issue, to let students inform the public about those kind of important issues.
Yeah, and from a student perspective, it's at that level, journalism at that level is important because, students are going to have these conversations in social media and dark corners of the internet, and regardless, and so it's important for all of us. The entire student population and the adult world that surrounds them, that get a chance to see what's really on students' minds from their perspective. And every journalism teacher promotes good journalistic standards, but we shouldn't be forced to cut and censor material that is very relevant to their lives and their perspective and their worldview.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing that I've just really appreciated about being here at Henderson, getting to work with Ready Media Group, because it's really been a great way for me to kind of explore not only with with the information delivered, with in the ways I craft segments and whatnot. I get a lot of freedom with that, but I even just get a lot of freedom in how I get to produce everything. Paul has been great about letting me mess around with the stereo, which I'll even be doing that with this interview too. I think that's been one of the best parts about Ready Media Group, is that they're very willing to let their students mess around, even like with my suggestion about using Substack, which honestly, we're talking about student press freedoms. I think Substack, I do think I think it'd be a great resource for any student who really wants to try to even just build their own portfolio of works.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I've been,
but I like how you when you won those awards a couple of weeks ago at ACMA, I like how you credited Substack and not KSWH or what?
KS. Oh, sorry. What did I not get? Did I not credit KSWH whenever I?
The actual awards say Substack. And
they were. Yeah. So
you were publishing on Substack on behalf of KSWH.
Yes. So let me. Yeah. So let me explain that actually, because I do that.
That'd be like giving credit to this interview to Zoom.
Yeah, So thank you everything that I do here with the kennel, this is actually my own mic. I don't know if I told you about how my brother was kind enough to get me this mic for Christmas. All the equipment is my own, actually. I've even found ways to use open source software, so I'm not even using the Adobe. I have the Adobe stuff on here, but just out of ethical reasoning. I'm recording my audio right now using Audacity as an open source piece of software. And then I use this editing software called Shotcut that you can download for free. There are some pieces, because I did go back, there are some, the majority of pieces I think that I did submit for, because they were all in all the 2021 stuff that was on the kennel, that was KSWH stuff, because I was experimenting with that. And right. I did kind of see a problem with that, so that's why I created that KSWH Substack. And I did submit the KSWH Substack as an audio podcast, and that just didn't get any awards at all.
But the kennel did?
Yeah, but the kennel did. It got an honorable mention. And
so that's the kennel then is completely independent of student media.
Yeah, it really.
I didn't realize that, and that's really impressive. So you're operate. So okay, that's really impressive. Good for you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and I want to make this very clear. It's not even a thing where I was like, oh, I saved up my money. I was lucky as hell because basically what happens. So I don't know, have you ever read Calvin? You've read Calvin Hobbes before,
Yeah, of course.
yeah. So Calvin is known for doing like having like these crazy Christmas lists, and so whenever I was a big fan, like whenever I was like 8 years old, I did emulate that one time. I had like a ridiculous Christmas list, but since then, I've kind of had the strategy of just like putting on like one nuclear option. If anyone's feeling generous, just one nuclear option. And, normally it's like a video game thing, but of course, the supply chain crisis right now, it's video game consoles are not going to cost you it's going to cost you a lot more because scalpers are still, anyways, that's another ramble. So I put like a mic, like this kind of mic on my wish list, and my brother was kind enough to get it for me, and also the equipment to like hook it up to my computer as well, and yeah, that now that you mention it, because I actually do realize now I still do have that clip of I think I just need to move that Loki clip over. I have a clip from In One Ear still on the kennel actually, so I think I do need to move that over to the KSWH Substack. So I'll need to get back onto that. But anyways. And that's I guess what I wanted to bring up with you next, because we were actually talking about at the the Society of Professional Journalists, conference. I think it was the speaker there was talking about. He was the keynote speaker. He wrote that book. I apologize. I'm forgetting his name, but he wrote that book about the serial murders, the racially motivated serial killings in I think, what was it, Alabama, if I'm not mistaken.
There were several there.
Yeah.
There were several speakers on that subject.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that was the one you're thinking of is Arkansas.
Oh, it was an Oh, like he was so these all happened in Arkansas. Like the murder.
Let me look up his name real quick.
Yeah. That'd be but anyways, he was talking about how there's a growing need for investigative journalism to be taking place. And I've been doing a lot of looking into the open source software called Tails OS. Have you heard of it before?
I have, and I think you're talking about George Jared.
George Jared, that's his, George. Okay, yeah, George Jared. Yeah, he
from Diamond State Murder Board podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, and he was he was talking about how there's like this growing need for investigative journalism to be taking place. And what I've noticed with Tails OS is I think it's made it possible for really anyone to obtain those tools now, because so Tails OS comes installed with Audacity already. Just it comes pre-installed, and you can actually, it has an older version pre-installed, but you can like update it anyways. And then it's also got you also get open source video editing software on there as well. It's not the best, but it gets the job done. So I was going to ask you if you had heard of it, and if you you had any experience using it. What were your thoughts on its efficacy for investigative journalism?
I thought the conference that we both attended was excellent, particularly on the subject of podcasting. They had a lot of great presenters, but I am not. This is a subject where I wouldn't be very useful. I don't think I just know of it and played around with it. But however, podcasting, started. Started getting really popular 2010ish, and then it started to, early 2010s seemed like it might be peaking, but then it took a little dip, but now it's just going gangbusters.
Yeah.
And for anyone getting into the podcasting business, there's a lot of opportunity there, but you've got to have a great presence. You certainly do, You can
Nice.
fill, yeah, you can fill the space, and you always bring interesting ideas to the conversation. So you do a great job, and I think a lot of students have to have this on their while this type of experience while they're working, or while they're taking classes and getting experience at the collegiate level. Um, that's one of the things, I might be able to come back on your podcast someday,
Yeah.
and talk more about it. But one of the
Yeah.
things that I would like to do is also start a podcast for the Press Association, and it's been with,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and and so if there's time in the day, and if the leadership there wants me to do that as part of my communication responsibilities, that is something that I'd absolutely do. And I think
Yeah.
I don't know if it would be a regular occurring podcast, or do them in series and
Mhm.
chunks, but nevertheless, it's other
Yeah.
other avenues of giving content to the groups that need it.
Yeah, yeah, and absolutely, and yeah, that's you bring up like using other avenues as well. That's what I've noticed has been I think most successful independent media outlets. I find that they're most successful because they managed to do this. A great example of what Breaking Point's recently started doing is they put out all their videos on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and then they also have their podcasts as well, so you can listen to it in video and audio. But what they've also started doing is, I guess they've had someone behind the scenes type up sort of like summaries of each segment to sort of summarize the viewpoints of both guests, and then he also like puts all the sources in there as well, so people who want to just read, sort of just kind of read like an overview of the show, they can get that, and that's like part of their premium subscription, so that's how they try to get you to give to their show.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, you bring up the point of trying to use all mediums to reach out to people, because ultimately I think that's what podcasting. I think podcasting has. I think it's made it's made a lot of different subjects more attainable for certain people. Personally, for me, it was politics. I think before I started listening to the podcast, talking about politics was terrifying to me, right?
Yeah.
But now it's because I was kind of able to start, just sort of talking to myself, not, in a public space. I was able to sort of build that confidence slowly over time. So that was kind of nice. There was something else I wanted to get back to that you brought up with the podcast. Oh, with Arkansas. So you brought the idea of doing podcasting. That made me think. Are there other, like, does the Arkansas Press Association work with other states? And if so, are they already doing their own podcasting attempts as well?
Yeah, so some do. I mean, the each industry. I mean, there's the news media industry at large, and then you have the sub industries. There's the broadcast industry. There's the television broadcast. There's radio broadcast. There's newspapers. There's magazines. There's online social media. I mean, it breaks down in so many different corners, and every corner has its own support groups, the advocacy groups that look out for that corner. And the press associations in every state are some of the larger or still larger organizations because they've been around the longest. However, we all know that our in general audiences are switching to digital. That doesn't change the fact that the newspapers of America still produce the most news out of any other, the most quantity of news.
And to add on to that too, I believe print has, I think according to a recent Gallup poll, I think print media has the most trust out of like any mainstream media source out there.
It does, and because most print newspapers, most print journalism is hyper local, and every small community that still has a newspaper, they focus on community issues, and people if they have mistrust for the print media, they're looking at the New York Times versus the Wall Street Journal. um, and they're not necessarily thinking about their daily hometown paper. But yeah, the industries, the sub industries within the larger media industry do work together, and they often have great relationships, and they work across state lines. They have regional and national conferences that they attend. The Arkansas broadcasters often get together with the Arkansas Press Association, and so there's a lot of collaborative effort that go on, because ultimately in the end we're all doing the same thing. We're producing journalism, and so we all have that in common, regardless of the medium.
Yeah, and what was so nice about the Arkansas College Media Association conference that I got to go to was kind of getting to feel like that sense of like journalists connecting, because keep in mind, I came here 2019. I took your newspaper practicum class in 2020 or spring of 2020, and then that's when we all went home. So immediately from the get-go, I never gotten that sense of like, oh, getting to connect with other journalists that I had never met before. One of the most memorable things I got to do, I think, from that conference was just getting to meet, well, for one, actually meet friends I had like currently met. Like I ran into a friend from OBU up there,
Mm.
and then on top of that, I got to make new friends as well. Hitting up or even just getting to meet, even just getting to hand out like a card to different presenters who were there, like that that documentarian
Yeah,
with the
I feel bad for every student in every discipline
yeah.
that had to go through high school or college during the pandemic era. But I mean, prior prior to our prior to the pandemic and prior to our severe budget crisis here at Henderson, we would be going to conferences left and right, and we'd go to New York almost every spring for CMA, and we'd go to the fall conferences that travel around from city to city, local conferences. Or regional conferences too, and that helps create a larger world for the students. That you get to see all these other people in person in real life. I still think that matters. I don't know. I don't know if it matters as much to young people that have grown up in a digital age. I know my son, his best friend still lives in North Dakota, and they're still best friends, and they're bonded through playing games online, and it's like they don't miss a beat. I don't. One of my best friends moved away in like fifth grade, and my mom's like, "You guys can write letters to each other," and I'm like, I don't do that.
Yeah, that's too much work. Too much work,
Yeah.
Mom.
But maybe if we had the internet back then, Dion and I, and I'll tag Dion on this one. Dion and I would have stayed really close friends throughout the years. We're friends on social media now,
Oh,
so I
okay.
imagine that would be the case. But regardless, being in person and meeting your cohorts from other universities that are interested in this industry, it shows you what's out there. It shows you a larger world than what you see at your own college, um, and it's so powerful just to feel that, even if
Yeah.
you don't learn a thing from the sessions, just to feel that there's a larger world that you're a part of. That's important.
Yeah, and I think I mean that was the real that was like kind of the main thing I think that COVID really took away. And honestly, that's kind of the big thing that even this financial aid crisis is still taking away from students. You were talking about getting to kind of see the world. We had to not cancel, we had to postpone our our trip to Europe for the honors college because one professor doesn't have tenure, so he doesn't even know if he's going to have a job
Right.
by the time we go on the trip. And then the other person, he's got tenure, but it's like that's a year for him to find another job. Um,
Yeah.
so, anyways, yeah, to a certain extent, I feel like even though I don't, because I know that there is talk now of another variant coming up right now, but I think we are starting to become a little bit more better equipped, I think, to like handle new variants now. The now I think we're starting to like sort of get a better idea of like what life after COVID's gonna look like.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I lost my train of thought there.
We're the Zoom generation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's really what I'm trying to say. Is like we really are the Zoom generation. And I've even noticed just like kind of like changes in, part of me feels like my switch from double major in communications and theater to like a theater minor. I mean, part of it was just the timing of it, but part of it was too, the first time I walked out on stage after coming back from COVID, I never felt so much stage fright before. I just like it's weird. I think that's part of what's kind of driven me now behind a mic today, because like, you know, I think like I've become less equipped now to handle larger crowds, especially whenever they're all looking at me.
I wanted to jump back real quick while I was thinking about it.
Yeah.
So George Jared was there. He was the true crime podcaster
Yes.
at the SPJ conference, but you were referring to Jerry Mitchell.
Okay. Yes, that.
He was the keynote speaker,
Yeah.
and he wrote the book on race crimes and hate crimes.
Okay.
Yes. So
Gotcha.
Louisiana.
Louisiana. That's where. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I wish, and I really wish I brought, because I didn't bring any. I didn't know he was going to be selling the book there. I probably would have picked it up had I known. But I'll see if I can try. Maybe Huey Library's got a copy. Who knows? But anyways, I'm trying to think of one more thing I wanted to ask you, because, and I gotta tell you, independent media outlets, they've been having a field day over this. And I did want to hear your thoughts on this. CNN Plus, I don't know if you recently saw Warner Brothers Media Discovery just announced it. They're shutting it down. They're shutting it down after like a month of operation. What did you end up? Because I've seen you use CNN like in the classroom before. Did you end up trying CNN Plus? What are your thoughts on it?
I did not try it, and I mean I listened to cable news stations on satellite radio as I'm driving to and from work, or I listen to podcasts, or if I'm not listening to news, I mostly listen to an audiobook driving to and from work, the 45 minutes one way every day. But I mean, when I look up news at home, I don't turn on the TV. I'll go to CNN's website. I'll go to, my New York Times subscription or Democrat Gazette subscription. And so, yeah, I didn't even really pay too much attention to CNN Plus. But I mean, you can watch stream CNN and MSNBC and Fox. You get like 10 minutes. If you don't have a cable subscription, if you have a cable subscription, then you can stream it as much as you want. But like our household and many other households, we don't have a cable subscription anymore or satellite subscription. We just stream. And so you get like 10 minutes on your TV. Well, 10 minutes on my TV doesn't mean a whole lot. And we don't leave news running nonstop in our household with a 12-year-old and a 4-year-old. If it's not a cartoon, then it's something something entertaining that we want to watch. Yeah. It was handy during like political season and debates and things like that. But it's unfortunate. I think there are a variety of things that Warner and Warner Discovery now is mishandling. Yeah. They're still the largest media company, but there's been some high profile mishandlings, and along with CNN Plus, there's the Fantastic Beasts franchise.
That's
to an end, and I don't know where, obviously it's DC Comics universe has not been healthy. there's just a lot of things that Warner is high profile things that Warner's struggling to get off the ground. Warner Discovery. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to cast any blame on what was formerly Warner, or Time Warner or whatever, but its new iteration, Warner Discovery, has had some high profile flops.
Yeah, and well, I think part of me thinks too I think what CNN Plus was offering, for the same price, they were offering the same kind of ad-supported news that I think there's been kind of a growth because there's been such a huge growth in independent media, and what I was thinking of like as kind of a benchmark to think of like because I think at the most that CNN Plus got was like 100,000 subscribers after I forget the name, McKinsey, the McKinsey, like I forget what exactly they do, but they were kind of like advising Warner Discovery on on the launch. They were like, oh yeah, it's gonna have like 2 million subs the first day, and ended up getting like 100,000 max. For context, Breaking Points is this YouTube channel I've been talking about a lot. They started. It's been about 9 months now, and they had about a year doing their own show on the Hill with a different name. So in about the span of a year and 9 months, this duo, Crystal Ball and Sagar and Yeti, have gotten over 750,000 subscribers on YouTube. Compare that. What?
8 subscribers.
Well, they're free subscribe, and that's the thing. So they do. So in terms of paid subscribers, they have their lifetime memberships. So people can pay like $1,500, just a one-time, not just, but a one-time payment of $1,500, and then they get like a bunch of crazy benefits, like they get their name put on the end of every episode. But you will not believe So they actually have like 3 big plaques with names. I feel like maybe there are at least like somewhere between 25 to 50 names on each plaque at least. I mean, they've gotten a decent amount, and then on top they also have like their usual I used to pay for their optional subscription, but then money became a little bit tighter, and I was kind of like, I don't watch Breaking Points as fervently as some other ones, so I stopped paying. But
what was the upfront cost on CNN Plus anyways?
I think it was, let me check that up. Let me go to the source view here real quick. Oh, wait a minute, hold on a second. Let me minimize that. There we go. CNN Plus. I cannot talk. Or I cannot type. Here's a article from the Hollywood Reporter. So it debuted at $6 per month with a lifetime 50% off offer. Okay. So that was their initial offering. So compare that. So Breaking Points was charging $10. Oh, here, let me go back to the full view here. So Breaking Points was charging $10 $10 a month. CNN Plus was charging $6 a month. Actually, I don't know either if that's was CNN
but
Plus still.
You had to pay CNN $6 a month to get any service.
Yeah.
Breaking Points, there's a lot of free content, right?
Yes, you can get a lot of free. You can basically get so the only part of the show you can't see, they do like their individual like prepared segments, and then the co-host will do a response to that. Those responses are left for the premium only people, but other than that, the rest of the show is free to watch as videos on YouTube, or you can listen to the whole thing as a podcast on most podcast platforms. So
that's one major difference. We have changed as a culture, as a society, to want information for free, and so it's harder for people to find room in their budgets to pay for information, and there's so much information out there. There's so many different sources. How do you choose which ones you're going to pay for and which ones you're not going to pay for? So I just think that Warner Discovery made a bad guess that this was going to be a viable market for their platform. I mean, CNN isn't going anywhere on TV. Of course, Fox doesn't really have any competitors, but CNN and MSNBC directly compete with each other, which cut their viewerships down significantly. And then just listening to NBC, ABC, CBS News for those standard viewers, or every other news network, you're going to get similar content to CNN. So it's Fox is different. Fox caters to a very specific group, and that specific group can't really get that type of content that Fox provides anywhere else. So it's going to have a larger share. And then all the other news networks and all the other broadcast networks that with evening news programs are very similar in terms of content. So they all fight with each other for what's left of that one half of the market.
Yeah. And you bring up that fight, that's kind of fighting there. I think in response, well, actually, no, I take that back. It wasn't even in response to CNN Plus's failure. I think I forget the name of the new CEO who's there now, or like the new leadership. I think they have like new leadership there already now. They were talking about trying to transition to talking more about like doing more fact-based reporting or remaining. I feel like they used the phrase remain neutral. I may be mistaken. I feel like remain neutral is probably not a great term though, but anyways, there were the new leadership there was talking about CNN sort of transitioning from more of their opinion based stuff from the likes of like Brian Stelter and who's Wolf Blitzer. There's some other ones I'm forgetting. But anyways, what do you think that might be a good path for CNN at this point to maybe they could sort of act as like just a maybe as like a some kind of like BBC substitute where they just kind of report the facts?
Well, I don't know that there's a large enough audience for what was traditionally headline news. I mean, it's so much personality based, or it's so much narrative based reporting, and that's not because CNN and MSNBC created it. It's because it's what the audience wanted. You'd experiment. CNN used to be all headline news, and this is what's happening now. And then the next hour, this is what's happening now. And then the audiences got tired of that, and so then they started adding personalities and analysis, and those became popular, and so that's how cable news grew up. And personality is always important. Walter Cronkite proved that, and others. But the analysis part, it is beneficial. What's not beneficial is downplaying the importance of actual headline breaking news without the analysis. Sometimes it's just good to know what's happening without somebody telling everybody what it means to them. And then have the part of your day that's open for editorial and open for analysis, but focus more heavily. But the thing is that's a BBC model. BBC is highly subsidized by taxpayer dollars. We don't do that here. So we have to cater to the lowest common denominator. Yeah. And that's how our marketplace works.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right, because people are just looking for the cheapest ways to get their information. That's so I think those are all what people are looking to get information that excites or appeases their more baser instincts. That's what I meant by lowest common denominator. Oh, I get you. Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah. I do want to ask more about. I assume that you meant that whenever you say lowest common denominator, I mean that just means like you're trying to cater to as many people as you can reach, right? And it's hard to cater to as many people as you can reach if you have a paywall for news that they may be less inclined to pay for, right? Yeah. So. Anyways, those are all the questions I can think to ask you, and I know we're getting close to 2:45. I think you probably got to be somewhere. Did you have anything else that you wanted to chat about on here before you had to leave?
Well, one thing that's come up today that I think would be interesting to watch, and I have no idea. Smarter First Amendment lawyers, First Amendment scholars than me would have to weigh in. But there is a direct correlation between Disney coming out against and expressing its opinion about the "Don't Say Gay" law, and now Florida revoking Disney's special governance rights, self-governance rights, and so legislators are on the record saying, if Disney would have just stayed in their lane. We wouldn't have, and if they wouldn't tell us how to educate our kids, we wouldn't have to do this. So now, my question is that a First Amendment issue? Because they voiced their opinion, and we all know that the Supreme Court says corporations are people. They voiced their opinion, and the government punished them for it. And there's a clear line between the two.
Yeah.
So I would be interested to see if there's a legal path there.
Yeah. No, I absolutely. Yeah. I mean, thank you for bringing that up, because that is insane. Look, part of me, I'm not. I am like one of the last people to get all defensive of a major corporation like Disney, who, if I'm not mistaken, I don't even know if they've still because I feel like I've heard a lot. They've been having a lot of issues with treating workers properly at Disney. I think Disney World. I think, if I'm not mistaken. Oh. Yeah. But anyways, and that's just there are a lot of other problems I have with Disney. But that's just flat out evil.
I'm just curious. I'm just curious to see if there is a First Amendment case there. Yeah. And I would, anybody interested in First Amendment issues, I think that might be interesting to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have do you remember where you first read about this?
This is just the state Senate voted to get rid of Disney's self-governance yesterday. Wow. And the state house, I think, voted. What
does self-governance mean exactly? Does that just mean Disney has looser restrictions as a corporation?
Well, Disney, and again, not an expert on it, but Disney has basically its own county, and they bear the tax burden for that county, and they have their own fire department and their own police department.
Oh wow!
And they've done Disney World, so not Disney, but this is Disney World in Florida.
Yeah.
And so the one of the concerns is that the surrounding counties, if Disney shoulders all that cost, but for the surrounding counties, Orange and then there's another one. If that tax burden and those costs then now fall onto the taxpayers in those counties because Disney's self-governance is gone.
Oh my gosh, there's probably a lot of resources to maintain that those people are going to need to be paying for now.
Yeah, special assessments and whatnot.
Oh my gosh.
So it's a complicated issue, but I'm just mostly interested in a possible First Amendment defense. But yeah. It's a complicated issue.
Yeah,
it's been great being on your show, and I, I've absolutely loved my time at Henderson. I've loved working
Yeah.
with you and all the students,
Yeah. Same.
and I'm gonna continue working with you guys and stay in touch. And I I hope to be able to continue to adjunct when it's possible, and maybe even advise some student media somewhere.
Yeah.
But for right now, with what's happening at Henderson, this it's time for me to explore something new. So.
Yeah, and hey, I'm just glad that you've got a job. I think that you're just well suited for too. That was just that was student press rights is like one of the first things. I mean, I think you talked about I think like in the first class I took with you. So, yeah. So I'm real glad to hear that you've at least found another job that's going to suit you well. I think, and yeah, I hope to continue to keep working with you too, Mr. Listopad. I mean, yeah, it's yeah.
We'll be in touch,
Yeah,
and for the next couple of weeks, your office is right next to mine, so knock on the wall anytime.
you bet. Alrighty, thank you so much, Mr. Listopad. All
Have
right,
a
you have
good
a good
one.
one. Yep. Bye.
Bye.